everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 36 of the Big at the Back podcast. I'm Tom. I'm joined by Matt. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's a miserable Friday morning. It feels weird that there's no Premier League football today. It's like a bit of an outlier this week, but we haven't got to wait long for a big, juicy, filthy double game week. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, the last Premier League fixture ended less than 12 hours ago, and the next Premier League fixture starts in about 24 hours. So I don't think we've got too much to complain about in terms of a lack of football.
No, it does come thick and fast at this time of the season, especially if you play for Brighton and Hove Albion.
Yeah, Brighton and Hove Albion have 8 games still to go, so we'll talk about them in a lot more detail momentarily. But we have the big double game week ahead of us. So let's start with a very quick game week 33 recap. Then we're going to talk about the double game week, what our transfers are, how we're lining up, what players could do well, and what players we should be avoiding, like Haaland. So talk to me, Matt, about how you did in game week 33.
Bang average, literally dead on the average of 55. Can't say fairer than that. My overall disappointing, really. Still with carrying my defence with 10 points and me picking up a clean sheet as well with 6. Zinchenko doing nothing. Trippier, again, Newcastle just can't keep a clean sheet to save their lives at the moment. If they don't keep one this weekend, they're probably never going to keep one. Midfield doing nothing. Salah, Elise, Bowen and Martinelli all with 1s and 2s. Similarly with Edouard and Isak picking up 1 each, but Isak was absolutely robbed of that assist for the incredible work he did in the build-up to Newcastle's 4th goal, was it, I believe? Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, big boy Erling Haaland, goal, 2 assists, captained up to 28 points. So, yeah, he got just over half of my points this week. So, saved me a little bit. Yeah, it was Haaland and 2 defenders. That was it for me.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated by the Isak assist. And it's not the first time we've seen it this season, right? Trent's had one earlier in the season. Solly March had one earlier in the season where their Opta has given it as the assist, but FPL have decided it's not. And the reason is because it wasn't the intended target of a cross, which is ridiculous. You can have a shot, the keeper tips it onto the post, and then someone gets the rebound. And that player that had the first shot still gets the assist. But actually putting a cross in for someone to hit and then someone getting on the end of it doesn't count as an assist. It's ridiculous.
The thing that frustrates me with it is, yeah, okay, it may not be the intended target, but you telling me every time someone puts in a corner or a cross, it goes to the intended target. They're just whipping it in the mixer and hoping someone gets on the end of it. So there's no consistency there, is there? And yes, it is very frustrating. It didn't frustrate me earlier in the season because I didn't have March when it happened and everyone was kicking off on Twitter, but now I have Isak, so I'm on the bandwagon. Pitchforks out.
I didn't have Trent or March when it happened to them. So yeah, I'm also on hating FPL for assist rules bandwagon. My week was good. Neto coming up with 7 points. I told you he was a good pick.
I got lucky.
Very jammy considering VAR ruled out an 89th minute goal for Southampton. Stones coming up with 9 points. Even though City aren't keeping clean sheets, he's apparently scoring goals. So that's 2 in 5 weeks that I've had him. So really happy with John Stones. Madison with 6 points as a goodbye present. Thank you, Madison. And
finally did something.
Finally done something in my FPL team before he leaves. Then Antonio, who I brought in this week with the assist, I started him because I thought against Liverpool aren't keeping a clean sheet against an informed West Ham team. And I was right. So Antonio got the assist there. Then you've obviously got the Haaland and with the captain's armband, but I feel like that's negligible at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't got Haaland as captain at the moment, what are you even doing playing this game? I don't want to give a quick shout out to, we might as well talk about it quickly, the West Ham Liverpool game, as it is the big at the back derby. We had you nervous for a little bit, didn't we?
Very nervous. And I had switched over to the Arsenal game at that point, but I think you were watching the Liverpool game and you said that there was a very, very questionable handball decision that went Liverpool's way towards the end. I haven't seen the highlights of it yet.
Yeah, it's one of those, and you've seen them given and not given, which is the hard thing. And Thiago sort of goes in for a tackle. As it gets knocked past him, it bounces off his arm onto the floor, back up onto his arm, and then is cleared away. And I think the PGMOL's verdict is he's using his arm to break his fall. The question is, at what point does it become a tactic for defenders to dive down and make it? Because West Ham got away with one big time earlier in the season as well when Souček did something similar. So it does come back around full circle. It was frustrating, but I think based on their current rules, it's probably not a penalty. But then you can debate whether the rules are correct or not. So yeah, frustration there, but I think overall we put out a decent performance considering the way we've been playing recently. It's another sort of continuation of that slight improvement in recent weeks, and the Paqueta-Antonio link up for the goal was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it's one of those. Klopp was going absolutely mental afterwards, but I'm not sure that Liverpool could have done much about that goal because I think it was a brilliant strike from Paqueta from way outside the box, and actually we didn't close him down quick enough, fair enough, but I'm not sure that closing him down was the right thing to do because it would have let the runner in behind. So I just think it was one of those goals you can't do anything about. It was really, really well taken. I
think the only thing you could maybe argue is Fabinho got a little bit sucked in, and then they managed to play the 1-2 around him, and it was probably quite obvious that that's what the plan was there with the 1-2. But like you say, sometimes you just got to give the strikers or the attacking team credit because they just put together a good move. My only frustration from the game was Said Benrahma, I think, had a very poor game. He gave the ball away, wasn't tracking runners. And why on earth was he marking Joel Matip from a corner?
It's ridiculous, isn't it? And Joel Matip shouldn't be in a Liverpool shirt anymore. He's just well past it. But I thought he played better than he has for most of the season. So I think he deserved the goal as well. Well done, Liverpool. They are, in the last 4 games, 3 wins and a draw. And that draw was against Arsenal.
From 2 down as well.
From 2 down. And they've got a double this week. Then Brentford, Leicester, Villa and Southampton to close the season out. It's really not a bad run for them. Top 4 seems an impossible task now because you've got to rely on Newcastle and Man U dropping points, neither of which looks likely. But I think we should definitely be securing that 5th place given Spurs at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was listening to, I think it was the Totally Football show last week, and they were talking about Liverpool in this run-in and how Klopp should really use it to basically experiment and do things like plan for next season. Essentially, you doing this Trent in this inverted role is part of that, and that's why you'll probably see a little bit more of this, I think. And yeah, getting Jota back, getting Gakpo, that front 3 together, probably going into next season. That's probably where you're looking ahead. So if you can put together a good run at the end of the season and hopefully carry that over to next year, that's exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah, and that's what I think he is doing as well. That's why Trent has been given license to move into midfield. Because Klopp has kind of gone, well, sod it, we're not getting anything out of this season, we might as well try. And it seems to be working pretty well. So this is an FPL show, and we are looking at one of the second biggest double game week of the season. And I am looking to use my bench boost. I'd say looking to, it's already pressed, it's already happening. How about you? What's your thinking around it?
Yeah, so I don't quite have as many doublers as you do, I believe. So, but that being said, at this point, let's just fucking go for it. So I'm looking at -8, potentially -12 to load up on doublers, which will get me up to sort of 10 or 11 doublers and good single game week players. And at that point, I'll just go for the bench boost because why not?
Yeah, and when else are you going to use the bench boost? I mean, game week 37, but then Brighton, you've got Brighton at double, Chelsea double, Man City double, Man United double, but none of them are good doubles, except Chelsea's, who have Man City away and Man United away.
Yeah, I think like City and United's doubles are pretty decent there. City have Chelsea at home and Brighton away, and United's probably the best, I think, with Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home. So, but you're banking on like 2 teams then, really, aren't you? So whereas here you've got a lot more spread, and I think the other fixtures are pretty good as well. So that's why I think just use it now.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. So why don't we jump into our teams then? Because I've made my transfers. I had to do it because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to afford it. So I took the risk and there were no injuries. So it looks like it's paid off. So have you made your transfers yet? What are you planning?
I've not yet. I'm tinkering I've been tinkering this morning as just ahead of this, and I'll probably do some now. I might even make these transfers as we talk through it. So currently my squad is still an Everson as my keepers.
Yeah.
Defenders are Trippier, Ake, me, Zinchenko, and Emerson. So out of them, Ake and Emerson double, but Emerson isn't playing at the moment. So that's something I've got to work around. Midfielders, Salah, Bowen, Martinelli, Elise, and Saka. So again, only 2 of those double, which is Salah and Bowen. And then a front 3 of Haaland, Isak, and Edouard. My thinking is I'm dropping or transferring out Emerson, because even though he's got a double, he's not playing. So I might as well get someone in that is going to play. Zinchenko out, Saka out, Edouard out, and Elise out.
Ooh. Giving up on the Crystal Palace boys, are you?
Yeah, since I've got them in, they've done nothing, and Palace have reverted back to the Roy Hodgson of old. So I feel like now is the time to ditch them off. And in their places, I'm looking at bringing in Lewis Dunk. Just going for him over Estupinian because he's got lower ownership, so I need to try and make up the ground. Aaron Creswell, because I don't want to double up on Brighton defenders, to be perfectly honest with you. Otherwise, it probably would be Estupinian. But Creswell's been starting, and he's on set pieces, which West Ham do have a danger from. And then my other transfers in are Rashford, Grealish, and depending on injury news, Evan Ferguson.
Ooh. I don't think he's going to be back.
He's down to 75%, so I'm just gonna wait and see.
But then
here's hopefully some press conferences.
Starting both games, surely, because he's going to be slowly brought back, and especially when they've got Welbeck there.
Yeah, but my thinking is if he plays one of them, the next game's Everton, and then they've got 2 more doubles. What's to lose?
Fair enough. I mean, I like it. I think just at this point, considering where you are and where your rank is, just go for it. Well, I mean, where are you sitting at the moment? 1.2 still.
1.3 after a slight red arrow this week.
Yeah, so just go for it. Just go hard at it.
That's what she said.
No, it's not. No woman has ever said that to you, including your wife. I'm not sure where that came from. Well, my team for the double is set. It's ready. Bench boost is active, so I'm excited. In goal, I have the fabulous, the wonderful Neto playing against Leeds, back from another 7-point haul. And then I have John Stones, Kieran Trippier, and Trent starting at the back. Across the middle, I've got 5. So it's Salah, Rashford with the Vice, Mitoma, Grealish, and McAllister. Then up front, I've got Antonio and Haaland starting. Then on my bench, I've got Everson, Estupinian, Dalot, and Isak. Dalot would probably... I'm trying to do this honestly. So I think Dalot would actually be starting under Estupinian. So I'm putting my bench as it would honestly be. So
you loser.
I know. Otherwise I could just put Rashford's salary.
Yeah, do the stupid shit like that. But obviously leave Haaland in your starting 11.
Maybe I just make my bench all Brighton, actually. Yeah, that sounds fun. 3 Brighton on the bench.
What, you've got Mark Albrighton?
Yes. Not 3 Brighton players, Mark Albrighton. So my bench is now Everson, Estupinian, Mitoma, and McAllister. Excellent. So that's how I'm lining up. For the teams that are doubling this week, the main ones are Brighton with Wolves and Man U, Fulham with City and Liverpool, so probably avoid them. Liverpool with Tottenham and Fulham, City with Fulham and West Ham, and Man U with Aston Villa and Brighton. So why don't we talk through all the teams that are probably good to invest in and the pros and cons of their best assets, starting, I think, with Brighton.
Did you know Mark Albrighton is on loan at West Brom? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, no. But I'm sure he was there this season at the beginning. Maybe
no, he went on loan. He went on loan in January.
That's why.
Yeah.
So back to the topic at hand. Brighton. Who are the best assets? Why?
It's difficult because of the way things have fallen for Brighton over the last week with the defeat in the FA Cup semi-final, the disappointment there, and then obviously the extreme disappointment of losing 3-1 to Forest in the week. I feel like they need to bounce back a little bit now because it could be sort of make or break for their season almost. They don't, typical for Brighton, they don't want to be on the beach. So it depends how you're looking. Obviously, you've got Mitoma, you've got McAllister, you've got Steele. A lot of people have got Steele, myself included now. Was very glad that he did end up starting over Sanchez. Then you've got like the Welbeck-Ferguson debate of the two strikers. I feel like they're a very investable team, but it's just hard to know where to go. And I feel like they're all good shouts. So I don't think you can really go too wrong, especially now that Veltman's back, and that sort of gives the balance back to their team and allows McAllister to push on again.
But he's not. But McAllister isn't pushing on. He's still playing in that more defensive midfield role. If I was doing Brighton again, I would actually not be going in on Estupinian. He's been disappointing since I brought him in. I would not be going on McAllister. I think Mitoma, yes, is probably the best asset you have there. I then think if you're looking at Brighton players, Steele is the obvious one. For a value keeper, he's been excellent. And then as a third, I would probably be looking at Solly March. I think March over McAllister would be my thinking at the moment. Now, McAllister's on penalties, but he's been playing so far back and in the screen role that it's just not been what we expected him to be in the last few weeks, at least.
Yeah, I think the thing that would potentially sway is the set pieces, because he does tend to be on free kicks and penalties. But like I say, he is sort of, it depends what they do. If they want to push him on a little bit forward, he becomes much more interesting, but you can't necessarily bank on that. I do like, and if he wasn't a forward, I'd be looking at is the youngster in Ciso or in Ciso. The couple of games he's played against Chelsea when he came in and scored that absolute worldie of a window.
Forwards on FPL?
Yeah, he's down as a forward at 4.6.
That's ridiculous. He's a central attacking midfielder for Brighton.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be a tempter if he was down as a midfielder. But, again, with the other options they've got in midfield, I think what would make most sense from a Brighton perspective is Steele, maybe a defender if you want to double up, which I am doing. And if so, maybe like Dunk or Veltman rather than a Estupinian. And then Mitoma's the obvious one, isn't he? Let's be honest. And then if you're not going two defenders, you'd probably go March or McAllister.
Yeah, if I was doing it, I'd be going Steele, March, and Mitoma as my three. I think they're the best three to from Brighton.
It's the wrong month for March.
Get the hell off this podcast.
Okay, bye.
The next team to discuss is Liverpool. Liverpool. Trent is looking really good. He's getting assists even if we're not keeping clean sheets. So he's ticking along. If we keep one clean sheet in these two, which we could very well do, then Trent's a nailed option. He's really good. Salah, because Ismo Salah, 5 years of being the best asset ever, means
one season wonder, mate. One season wonder.
One season wonder for 5 years means he's an obvious pick. The third is interesting. Lots of people have gone Jota, but he didn't play nearly as well against West Ham. Lots of people have gone Gakpo, who did play as well versus West Ham, but he's not in amongst the goals nearly as much as Jota. I still have some doubt as to whether Jota starts both of these games. Luis Diaz is back. Darwin Nunez is still there. Now, Klopp did an interview about Darwin Nunez saying he needs to get better at speaking English and communicating with his teammates, which to me tells me that Klopp doesn't
isn't it?
Well, Klopp doesn't want to play Darwin Nunez for the rest of the season until he sorts out that communication thing, because he can't communicate. Especially, imagine coming from South America and having to learn English, but you're learning English in Liverpool. It's a Scouse accent. It must be so difficult. But until he gets that down, I don't think he'll be starting, and he might be a wait till next season before you look at getting him in. So I think Trent and Salah are the obvious two. Gakpo is would probably be my third choice. Robertson also was playing much further forwards in the West Ham game than he was in the previous few, so he could be a real option as well.
And again, as was proven on Wednesday night, set pieces for Robertson as well on those corners from one side, while Trent takes from the other side, because you tend to go for out swinging corners from both sides. So there's always that. But I don't know. I think, Salah's the obvious one. Trent is probably your next choice. Obviously, he's very expensive, so it depends on your funding for your defenders. I was looking for a way to get Jota in, but I just couldn't really afford him. He was just a little bit outside of my price bracket, unless I wanted to drop Isak, which I don't want to do, especially as he didn't start on Thursday night. So I'm assuming he will play against Southampton at home, and that is a very juicy fixture. So, yeah, I think that leaves me with, I will only be going with Salah, but I think Salah's your top choice. I think Trent is probably just ahead of Jota and Gakpo, but they would be my 4 that I would be choosing from.
Yeah, I agree with that. And their fixtures are looking good for the rest of the season. Speaking of good fixtures, they don't need good fixtures to play well, but Manchester City, this presents a really interesting debate because everyone's going Haaland. That's nailed. He's going to be captain for everyone. Fine. KDB looked awesome in that Arsenal game. However, if you get KDB, you're not likely to be able to have Salah. Now, in that Arsenal game, Man City mixed up their play and played a bit differently. I don't think that continues against Aston Villa or against Fulham and West Ham. I think they go back to playing how they did. So does that mean KDB doesn't go forward and have as much freedom? I think KDB is a really interesting question. What's your take on it at the moment?
He looked fantastic, and he looked back to his absolute best. But like you say, it was very much a tactic for their opponent, and it makes a nice change that when Pep mixes things up like that, it pays off rather than pepping it up. So, and from an FPL perspective, you're probably going to have only one of Salah or KDB. So it depends where your funds are that way. I'd say if you've got Salah at the moment, it makes no sense to make the sideways move to KDB for this double because I just don't see the point. Liverpool playing a very out of form Spurs side, despite the fact they rescued a point against Man United, they are just so open at the back. And then a Fulham side who are pretty much on the beach at this point. So I think it makes sense to stay with Salah. That being said, De Bruyne was back to his best. He is yellow flagged at the moment with a 75% chance, but I don't see him not playing. The risks you've got with anyone else is rotation, and you feel like KDB is the most nailed. So I could understand if you want to get him in, but I think people will struggle to get him in with the funds.
The one I've got is Jack Grealish, who is not nearly as exciting as KDB, but is, I think, guaranteed the starts.
Famous last words.
He's been starting all season for Pep. He's an instrumental player in that system. I think Jack Grealish is going to be starting both games. I've seen people speak about Riyad Mahrez. I just don't want to play the Riyad Mahrez game. I never want to play the Riyad Mahrez game. I've long held the opinion that Mahrez is just a player you always avoid since he moved to Manchester City, basically. And just to give some perspective, if you are considering Mahrez, know what you're buying. Because he's had 1 assist in his last 9 Premier League games, So it's not, yes, he can be explosive. He scored the hat-trick in the FA Cup semi-final. But also, he can not start, and he can easily get 1s and 2s instead of 10s and 12s. So I just think, know what you're buying in for and know the risk you're taking if you're looking at Riyad Mahrez.
Couldn't agree more. Ever since, I'd say the first season at City, he was one of the main men. But since then, we've always said it, the amount of players they've got that play in those similar positions, it's so hard to nail down a starting spot. It seems to be at the moment that his preferred pairing is Grealish and Bernardo Silva. So, and I expect that as you get to the Champions League semis, that's when you'll see Mahrez coming because he does seem to fancy in the Champions League. But that being said, I could easily see Silva starting in the Champions League because he's more of a hustler, and against the Real Madrid team, that's probably what you're going to need. So then maybe Mahrez comes in for the league. So who fucking knows? It's Pep roulette all over again.
I think the rule here is don't try and play the Pep game. Just step out of that conversation. You have thoughts that are better spent elsewhere. Defensively, I've been a big fan of having John Stones.
I've got Nathan Ake, which has not gone well because he's basically been injured since the week after I brought him in. So I'm holding on to him just in the hope that he plays at least one of these games.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I got John Stones is he's the only one I thought was a nailed starter. Akanji was brilliant against Arsenal, so I think he's pretty nailed as well. I don't really see where Ake comes in. Does he replace Diaz? I don't think so.
When he has been playing, he's been playing on the left, hasn't he? So
Yeah, but Akanji played really well there.
Pep just likes to mix it up. He seems just to like playing like four centre halves and just sticking them wherever they want to go. One in centre mid, one at right back, one at left back, probably one in goal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think Stones is the one to go for if you're going for a City defender, personally.
What about Rico Lewis?
A word for Edison?
No.
Okay, we'll move on.
that was a word.
Manchester United, give me your thoughts.
They're like, what a game of two halves that was against Spurs. They absolutely blew them off the park in the first half and then completely capitulated in the second. Rashford's the one, isn't he? Let's be honest. Do you know who is sort of giving me a little bit of a pull, though? It's Jadon Sancho. He was probably one of their better players in the FA Cup semi-final in what was a very poor game, and then scored a very nice goal against Spurs on Thursday night. So obviously he's nowhere near the Rashford ownership, but he is a very nice-looking differential for me at 7.1, which is the same price as Rashford.
I completely agree, and I will probably have him in for the 37 double. Maybe I actually move him next week for the West Ham game, but for this double, I'm not able to make that move. But I think if I was really trying to be differential, he's one I would be strongly considering.
You can't really go near them defensively. I think the loss of Martinez has really hurt them.
Yeah.
So and it's funny how things have changed from the start of the season when he signed and they had that rocky like patch at the start, and everyone was saying, "Oh, he's too small for the Premier League." Like past pundits were all slagging him off, saying he will never make it in this league, and now he is the big thing that's missing from them, which is preventing them from being able to keep clean sheets.
He basically directs how they play through the back. That he is the one player that creates that bringing it out from the back mechanism for Manchester United. And without him, their transition looks a bit lost at sea. So now Bruno, I thought looked really, really good. But again, he was dodging FPL points left, right, and centre. He got an assist, but he should have had way more. And I brought him out last week just because I was sick of him dodging FPL points. And don't get me wrong, I brought out Kane and Bruno for Antonio and Salah. So in terms of a 1 week move, it hasn't worked out well because of Kane's 11 points. But overall, I don't think I'd be looking at going near Bruno at the moment.
No, that chance where he hit the bar, that was the big one. And I don't know how they didn't score from that, because then Wan-Bissaka had his follow-up denied as well. So yeah, they very much is dodging FPL points. You know what will happen now? He'll go on an absolute run between now and the end of the season and just scooping up points left, right, and centre. And if he does start, because like their fixtures between now and the end of the season are decent. I wouldn't say there's this double is the trickiest it gets for him with Villa and Brighton, with two sort of informed teams. But after that, they've got a really nice run in. No European football to contend with. They've just got to focus on getting that top four.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think they should be able to do relatively easily, given the fixtures they have. The other team doubling that we're both invested in is West Ham. So you're the expert. Talk to me about West Ham on FPL and who the best and worst assets are.
I think at the moment, for me, the best are Bowen. Looks like he's coming back to form. He's looking a lot more lively. Before the Liverpool game, he'd got 4 returns in as many games, including, and he's also been playing well in Europe. So he is definitely the one to look at. Up front, Antonio is probably the one you've got to look at. He didn't have as an effective game other than the assist against Liverpool. I don't think he didn't really give the defenders as much of a run around as he can do, but I still think he is looking back to somewhere near his best. Other than that, my boy Declan Rice, get him in. Go on, I dare you. He is playing so well at the moment. I know he's not an FPL asset, but he's picked up a goal and an assist recently as well. Scored against Bournemouth. I can't remember who his assist came against recently, but he is just. It's going to be a shame when he inevitably leaves us at the end of the season because he is just different class.
Yeah, and he's definitely going at the end of the season. Probably to Man U. You got to think.
I don't know. There's rumours of Arsenal, which obviously if they've got to stump up a decent amount of cash to get him.
Yeah.
So it depends who's willing to pay the money. Someone I haven't mentioned as well, actually, who's really come into form in the last couple of weeks is Luca Paqueta. Obviously, he got the goal there. He got a goal against Bournemouth as well, so it's 2-2.
Defensively, though, isn't he?
He's starting to fight. He's starting to play more box to box. So he's not really a traditional 10, but he is box to box, like you saw with the Bournemouth goal, making late runs into the box and getting his head on things. So, and at 5.9, he is pretty cheap as well. So he's a good sort of differential.
If you want an enabler, I guess he's an option. As far as single game weeks go, we can't really go past looking at Newcastle, right? Southampton at home. Could you ask for a better fixture?
Probably not. No. Maybe Nottingham Forest at home is the only sort of better fixture, which frightens the life out of me again with Ivan Toney this week, but we'll talk about that. If Newcastle don't keep a clean sheet in this game, I think I'm getting rid of Trippier.
No chance. Absolutely no chance because they double in 36.
Yeah, where they won't keep any clean sheets again.
There's no chance Trippier leaves my team until game week 38. But I do see where you're coming from. He's not as involved in the attack and they're not keeping clean sheets. So since like game week 24, it's been 2s and 1s, essentially.
It's painful. I'm just going to look at it. So he got 12 against Man United in that 2-0 win. But other than that, he's had, so since the World Cup, he's had 2 returns.
Yeah, considering how good he was early season. I do think, though, that he still has a high ceiling, especially against the Southampton side, who are very poor away from home, or very poor in general, to be honest. Trippier, for me, isn't going anywhere.
Well, I say I'll get rid of him. I probably won't, let's be honest. But the temptation will be very much there.
What do you think of their forward options? Because Isak came on and looked great, but Callum Wilson did get 2 goals. So is there a risk there that Wilson starts at the weekend? But Isak has been rested in both midweek games since the World Cup, and then he's come straight back into the side. I'm not that worried about it.
No, I think it's just a rest thing. I think he'll start against Southampton. Remember when you told me to captain Isak this week?
Yes.
That would have gone very badly, Thomas.
That would have gone. But it would have been fun.
No, it wouldn't. At no point would it have been fun. It wouldn't have been fun on Wednesday night when Haaland was racking up points for fun. And it would have been even less fun about an hour before kickoff on Thursday night when I looked at the lineup and saw he was on the bench. And then I'd have been praying that he didn't come on. And then he would have come on and I'd have cried. Where's the fun?
Yeah, I know. It's not great. But
are there any other Newcastle assets? Joe Willock?
Maybe Murphy?
Joe Linton?
No. Absolutely not. So I'm just trying to look at the...
I mean, because you can't really look at them defensively at the moment because they just can't keep a clean sheet. Almiron is doing nothing and hasn't done for a long time. Guimaraes, no. Yeah, so I'd argue the best options are in the midfield are Willock or Murphy.
Willock starting. Murphy got a rest after his 2 goals. Willock could be a really cool differential, but I guess you're not looking at them for this week, really, are you? You're not troubling up in Newcastle this week. That'll be moving after this.
I think you should get Anthony Gordon in.
Yeah, that's a hard pass from me. Cool. So in terms of your transfers, have you made the decision? Have you pressed the button?
I haven't yet. I'm going to sit on it for the rest of the day and wait for some news conferences and see what's going on and where. Actually, one team I do want to talk about again is Arsenal because they play Chelsea. and Chelsea are shit.
That's a good point. I mean, Chelsea, we always assume Chelsea's a tough fixture. It's not at the moment. And Arsenal are going to really want to come back strong after that City
They
game.
need to as well. Like, they can't afford to drop any more points. They have to win out from here to the end of the season. And that being said, I'm taking 2 Arsenal players out of my team this week.
Chelsea aren't going to win a single game this season. Like, under Frank Lampard, they're not going to win a single game. It's wild that if you take Tuchel's reign out away from Chelsea and just take results from when Tuchel was fired, they'd be in relegation zone.
Yeah, it's mad. I mean,
absolutely wild.
The thing is, like, after Arsenal, it's Bournemouth away and Forest at home. And if they don't win either of those, like, that's a disaster, because they finish out with City and United away and Newcastle at home, all teams that will have things to play for probably. Like, you could genuinely see them picking up like 3 points between now and the end of the season. And they're like, it is funny to say, they're not a million miles away from the relegation zone.
How many points they've got? Like 38 or something?
They're on 39, so they're 10 points clear of the relegation zone. So they're not getting dragged into that. But how funny would it be if they finished like 4 points above the relegation zone?
Hilarious. And it couldn't happen to a nicer set of fans.
Oh, 100%.
Things you love to see. Right, well, that is it from us at Big at the Back. We've got a really quick turnaround this week with the game week happening from tomorrow. We'll be back early next week to discuss how the game week has been going and to possibly cry when we look at our bench boosts. You can find us on Twitter. The handle is @BigAtTheBack.
Yep, you can find me at Higgins92 and Tom is at TomMadden92. I'm just looking at how many games are on TV over the next few days. It's bloody beautiful. Early kickoff. There's no late kickoff tomorrow, though. That's annoying. Why is there no late kickoff tomorrow?
What are we going to do at 5:30 then?
I don't know. There must be something we can watch. So, yeah, you got Palace, West Ham tomorrow lunchtime. Fulham, Man City and Liverpool v Spurs on Sunday, which are both sort of good FPL games. Then Leicester, Everton, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, West Ham and Brighton United all between Monday and Thursday next week. So it is a feast of football. Try and enjoy it. And remember, it's just a game.
It's just a game, but it's so much more than just a game. Fantasy football is life. Terrible at it. Right, guys, we will see you all next